Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Taylor and I'm with TV Toastmasters. My home group is Feedbackers in Beaverton, Oregon. I first joined Toastmasters for a couple reasons. I was nervous. I had trouble speaking in front of others. I needed some help. And when I joined Toastmasters, not knowing what to expect, I learned several things. One, it gave me the confidence to speak in front of others. I learned how to take constructive criticism. I benefited from that. That benefit was the confidence to get a job. When I took the suggestions in the club, when I started speaking in front of a group and remained speaking through my role, doing table topics, getting topics that you're unaware, learning how to think on your feet, learning how to speak on your feet. I first started working managing the Berkshire Hathaway account. I started as a back office role, not the face of the company. It didn't take long until I was dealing directly with the executives. Today I give executive briefings for Verizon Enterprise in the highest level in the enterprise space. And I'm grateful and I owe all of that to Toastmasters. Thank you.
Welcome back to TV Toastmasters. I'm your host, Erik Bergman. Besides being in TV Toastmasters, I'm also a member of We Toasted Toastmasters in Lake Oswego. And tonight we have a great subject and two guests, not one but two guests, to talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, adoption. And we're going to hear from two of our fellow Toastmasters from around the Portland area. First, Lisa Hutton. Next to her, John Michael. Both are members of Marylhurst Toastmasters. And they're here tonight because each of them has a unique and touching personal story of adoption and how it changed their life. So, welcome to TV Toastmasters.
Great to see you, Erik.
Thank you, Erik.
Great. Lisa, let's start by asking you to just set the stage. How did you come to be with the family that raised you?
I was the third child adopted. My parents had gone through the reviews, the preliminary testings of making sure they were a viable family, and they adopted my older brother Paul 4 years ahead of myself. Mm-hmm. And then 2 years later, they adopted my brother Brian, and then they initially wanted 4, and they weren't particular about gender for the first 2. After 2 boys, they decided on a girl for sure. And then in 1969, on Valentine's Day, I became their gift.
My goodness.
Yes.
And that was that in this, what state were you in then?
I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, at St. Joseph's Hospital.
So from Phoenix, and your family was in the Arizona too at the time?
Yes, my parents were living in Phoenix about 9 years prior to adopting us all together, and had finally resolved that that was the best route for them to create a family.
Great. John, how about you? You had an international adoption, meaning you were born in another country. How did you get to be here in Oregon?
So my parents, they were struggling with having some kids and had a couple miscarriages, and they went through the adoption process. They came down to Columbia, which where I'm adopted from, is Columbia, a little town called Armenia, and they came down and adopted us. On the way down, I don't know the time frame, but they told us there was 2. So my brother and I were adopted together, and I was 3, he was 2, and they flew down, got us, and brought us back to Boring, Oregon.
Yes. So you came from the country of Colombia near the capital city of Bogota, right?
Yes.
And your parents had decided to go to another country. Was that out of some sense that there were children there that needed help, that needed good homes? Do you know anything about that? Or what was their motivation?
On that, Erik, I'm not really sure, except for I know my parents had relatives that had done international adoptions, so they were interested in that and knew about that. So I think that's what I would, kind of off the cuff would know about that.
Sure. Well, there is a lot that you didn't know at the time and still don't know about your birth family, your family of origin, but we'll get back to that. So Lisa, you had 2 other adopted siblings.
Correct.
Not biologically related to you, correct?
No, my oldest brother has brown hair, my middle brother has red hair, and growing up I was rather blonde. So one of each.
One of each color. What was that like where maybe people didn't know by looking at you and your parents and your brothers that you were all one family?
Oddly enough, we have similar gestures, and there's a certain style of people just speaking the same dialect and conversation. People didn't know as much as we were comfortable with them commenting on. And we would play jokes. People always tell, oh, you know, you're the one who's adopted. We would pretend that you were the one that our parents had for real.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you're playing little games.
But it wasn't really a concern. We had a little book growing up called God's Chosen Child, and read that from pretty much the time when we were little, having our parents read it to us. And it was just a normal absorption of our language to say that we were adopted, and it was never an oddity by any means.
Right, okay. Now, but John, you noted that you have a different story because you're not the same coloring. Your hair is a different color, your eyes are a different color, you're a little darker than your adoptive family. What was that like? You did have your brother with you, presumably looked much like you.
Yes.
But how did that work? Did people seem to wonder how you got to be in that family?
Yes, I definitely got a little bit of a, you know, people trying to figure out what, you know, maybe I had, I don't know, how would you say it, but, you know, a different parents from maybe a different country, married and Caucasian, vice versa, and always people would scratch their heads wondering what was and then they would see my mom and then my sister, who's my parents' biological daughter, which is, you know, Caucasian, or people would ask me white parents, and it always made me laugh when they would ask me that. But yeah, people would look definitely kind of trying to figure out what the backstory was.
Right, because there really is a backstory there. But you mentioned that you have had, you feel that you have some of the same values, the same religion, and what are the things that you feel are an affinity, a tie, or where you match your adoptive parents who raised you?
So besides not looking the same, I think, again, when we talk about family, it's more than just our looks and, you know, and our blood, but it's a family, and a lot of those things such as religion, we share the same, our work ethics, how we were grown, you know, how we were raised, we definitely all share the same values. There's definitely those family values are connected, and without blood or the color of your skin.
Right. Now, you folks both know, but I'll tell for the audience out there that my wife and I became adoptive parents of two girls who were siblings, full biological siblings from Oregon's foster care system. And so they're now 27 and 24, mature adults now. And it was so interesting because our family, I think like Lisa's, could pass as bio family because our kids did sort of look like us. Well, not exactly, but people would say, oh, they look so much like you. And we would always just say, oh, thank you. They're adopted. It was our little joke because nobody really questioned that this is a biological family, even though the parents were quite a bit older. So we're older parents, yeah? Were yours?
My parents are, well, I'm 50 and my mom's 85, both my parents. So there's a significant, about 15-year difference between my birth mother and my parents that raised me.
Right. So even an age difference that comes, but somehow it all works out. And now you certainly, Lisa, you considered your adoptive family your, quote, real family, not that there is a fantasy family, but they raised you and you were right at home.
Oh, they're mom and dad. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the same with you, John?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right. So there's no question that you know who was feeding you, who was taking you to school, who was administering any needed discipline or direction, right?
Yes.
It's the people that love and read to you and care for you and that provide you that comfort that become your sense of parenting. And that, for many people, it's their grandparents. For myself, my parents, although being older than some of my playmates and friends growing up, it didn't appear to me that there was anything significant to them being a little bit older.
Right. Now, did Did either of you feel any sense of being an outsider or not quite belonging at times?
In third grade, when we did a family tree as a school project, the teacher did a disservice to presenting, at the time, multicultural families, divorced families, layered families were not as common as they are today. And they made the tree for the family tree very linear. It was no inclusion of anybody who shouldn't fall right down the line of the tree. And I had a really hard time feeling that that tree didn't represent my background, and yet I still felt very connected to my family. Myself as well as both my brothers, we all have either a middle name or our first name is a reference to someone in my parents, either their father or my grandmother.
Right. Now for John, clearly, Dan, were you raised knowing you were adopted?
Yes.
It would have been hard to hide it, right?
Yes.
But how did you have any experience like Lisa points out where you felt the outsider?
I think younger, yeah, I did definitely have that deep sense inside, but I couldn't think of, I couldn't, as being young, couldn't explain that verbally and how I was feeling about that. But there was, even though, I had a loving family and, but there was still this kind of I always would say, looking in the window. That's kind of how it would, at times would feel when I was younger.
Oh, so looking in from the outside,
yeah, that's kind of
wishing you were part of the inner circle, somehow feeling a bit separate.
Yeah.
There's that Dr. Seuss, Are You My Mother book? And then my mom said that I used to read that quite often. And they never made a big deal out of it, but they would play into the idea that there is the possibility for me to search at some point if I ever wanted to, like the book does. Are you my mother? Are you my mother? And searching around trying to make that visual connection.
Right. Trying to find the place where you match.
Yeah.
Visually.
When you're young, matching is important.
Yeah.
Right, indeed. Well, let's see. We've covered some of the basics of how you felt about being adopted, how you came to be adopted. We'll take a short break here, and when we come back, we'll hear more about the personal stories of Lisa and John and their adoption and how these things have worked out over time, because adoption is an ongoing story. So stay tuned. We'll be back.
Hi, I'm Phyllis Harmon. I'm a member of TV Toastmasters. In this club, we have an opportunity to practice speaking before the camera as well as running the equipment room. If you're interested in being interviewed on TV Toastmasters or becoming a member, please go to toastmasters.org and look for us, or simply search for TV Toastmasters on the web.
We're back again with TV Toastmasters. I'm Erik Bergman, and tonight I have two guests from Marylhurst Toastmasters who are sharing their adoption stories. Lisa Hutton and John Michael, thank you for being here, and we'll pick up where we left off. Now, Lisa, in your Toastmaster club, Marylhurst Toastmasters, you posed a riddle to your club members. Can you tell us what that riddle was, and what was the answer to your riddle?
Yes, so the riddle was that I'm the oldest and I'm the youngest, but I am not an only child. How can that be?
And were they...
Completely perplexed.
They were perplexed.
Yes, it's an odd question. And the answer is that in my birth family in 1969, I was the firstborn child of any of my birth mother's siblings. And in my adoptive family, I am the youngest of not only the family I was raised, but my cousins and all possible relatives.
So the oldest and the youngest, but not the only.
Correct.
Perfect. And that's adoption that made that possible. Mm-hmm. Because you have a family of origin and then the adoptive family that raised you.
And I didn't know there was a riddle of any sort up until about 17 years ago, when I was 33 and I was able to reconnect with my birth mother. I've always thought I was just the baby, the youngest, and capitalized on that role quite happily.
Right. There's some interesting questions of birth order and what
Yes.
that brings with it. But so tell me, because you had two adoptive brothers older than you, it was actually something that your older brother did that initiated a series of events that are quite coincidental and amazing that led you back to your birth family.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, very quickly, to make it short story, my brother hired a woman named Shirley Pusey, and she was a search agent. And she spent about a year with my brother searching to find his birth mother, upon which they decided and came to a conclusion that it wasn't an opportune time for this woman. She declined to connect with my brother. And Shirley and Paul, my brother, had connected quite well. And there took a little time to resolve what was going on. As Shirley was closing up my brother's file, about that same week, my birth mother had hired Shirley to search for me. And on my file were bits of information that are rather easy. St. Joseph's Hospital, Valentine's Day, 1969, Phoenix, Arizona. And that is exactly what was written on my profile for my brother, and it was exactly what my birth mother was looking for. That's a match.
So the coincidence was that two different people had hired this woman to help search.
Yep.
And the coincidence was that it was your brother and you're the adoptive sister.
And Shirley was very instrumental. She had also been the person who placed me to
Oh,
my
wow.
parents
Right.
33 years prior to that.
Man, oh man.
Right.
Unbelievable. Now,
Yes.
John, I love that.
Yeah, that's-
John, your story differs a lot from Lisa's at this point because you knew very little about your birth family. You had been in an orphanage with your younger brother, correct? Ages 3 and 2 before being placed. But tell us what you did know or what you were told at the time about what your birth family might have been like, or what were the circumstances that led you and your brother to end up in an orphanage in Colombia?
A couple scenarios. The one story is, had a younger mother, definitely lower income, couldn't afford us. So one might have left us at a babysitter's house, and then she never came back. And then the story was they looked for her, and then put us in an orphanage, and that's where we were put up for adoption. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much. I mean, that's the story we have of how we came about and ended up in that orphanage.
Did you know her name at all?
No, we have, it's, at the time, the records, and I don't know if they've improved or not, but yeah, there was a little information on where we were born or who to or any of that information.
So my goodness, a very, very different situation, and with different language, different government,
Mm-hmm.
different customs. It's harder to go back and find. Let's see, and so you've really not had the option or the opportunity to try to seek out anyone from your birth family with virtually nothing to go by, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier today about just as older I get, though, I'm gonna have a child here in July, and just that actually has kind of sparked this interest in finding, a little bit of an interest in actually knowing, maybe looking or having an interest in looking for my family or birth mother.
True. You had mentioned something that in Colombia at the time, in the general era of when you were adopted, there had been possibly a lot of corruption or literally people stealing babies to be placed for adoption because there was a financial incentive for some people to provide babies to well-meaning people who wanted to save an orphan. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, just recently I learned a little bit more about, from my sister-in-law, and I don't remember if it's a Netflix or a documentary about Colombian babies between 1978 to about 1990 of mothers sending them to a babysitter's house or whatever the case is, and then having somebody steal those babies and then for money, and then somehow coordinate a way to sell them, and then families from out, internationally, legitimately adopting these children that are, been stolen, from their biological parents, and their mothers out looking for what happened to their children or child.
Yeah.
And that's just a recent thing I've learned about, and
Right.
quite interesting.
Wow, my goodness. So Lisa, then you were connected with your birth mother was actively searching for you.
Correct. I was
and
not
you
searching.
You were not searching,
No.
partly because your brother had an experience
Not a great experience.
where they found his birth mother, but she didn't really want a relationship.
Correct. I also just am very happy with my family.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't feel that I had anything missing or that I was looking to find, other than perhaps someone that I felt more similar by appearance, but nothing, there was really no void. I don't have
Right.
children myself. Similar to what John is saying, my brother's search was initiated after his second child. And there was that, I know where my family's going, but where did my family come from? Sensation that was very strong.
Right. There's such valuable medical information, if nothing else, that you can gain from knowing your
Yeah.
birth family. It's that, and that's helped our family a lot by my daughters knowing some of the illnesses, some of the conditions that they might be prone to, so that they can be much more aware of watching out for that and checking on it. So there's very valuable medical reasons to know your birth family if it's possible.
Right. I've benefited from more meeting the people. I
Yeah.
got to meet my birth grandmother. I've met all of my birth cousins, aunts, uncles. It's a very large family, as well as a very tall family. I am short by a long shot. They are all 6'1", 6'3", 6'4". My half brother is 6'8". I obviously was created by somebody that my birth mother was with that was short. And there's a huge dynamic to just what the secrecy was back in 1969. The nature of what John went through is very different, but the nature of what our culture in America hid from people was so much more shame than what birth is now.
Right. So actually nobody in your birth mother's family knew that she had had a baby.
No, it was a secret. She went to
Yeah.
live at a Florence Crittenden home and then came home after giving birth to me and did not disclose to any of her siblings. Only her parents and her first husband knew of my existence.
Wow.
Up until 9/11. And that was her turning point of feeling that the world was different and she wanted to do something to take back a sense of what was taken from her.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that must have taken some bravery and courage on her part to come out and tell her family of this secret.
Oh, yes, most definitely, considering her mother was still alive. And it was a challenge to challenge what had been hushed under and quieted for, at that point, 33 years.
My goodness.
Yeah.
My oh my. Adoption is an ongoing story. Where do you think your story might be leading you, John? I know you'll become a parent soon.
That's a good question. I think the more I talk about adoption, it seems a little bit more of interest in finding out, like possibly where I come from, and maybe so with having my own child too, that want to know where my roots come from and how I got here, and yeah, I think it will continue, and hopefully a happy story.
Good. I wish it a happy ending.
Yeah.
Lisa, how about you? Where do you see your story unfolding with the two families?
It unfolds with relationships for me
Yeah.
at the current. I have gone to weddings, funerals. I've been with my half-sister when she had surgery from recovering from a brain tumor. I've had the benefit of playing with cousins and really enjoying to get to know how my personality is not always my nurturing. There is much to my nature that has been a spirited child my whole life, and I have a greater sense and a connection to where that comes from.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to hear your stories. That's it for this segment of TV Toastmasters. I hope you'll join us again. This is Erik Bergman, signing off. Good night. Hi, I'm Erik Bergman. As a member of TV Toastmasters, I get to learn all about video production, running a TV show. Plus, I get to be on camera interviewing really fascinating Toastmasters who share their stories about their hobbies, their activities, and how they benefit our community. I also get to bring in members of my home Toastmasters club, We Toasted in Lake Oswego. They get to tell their stories and build their communication skills. We're bringing a voice for District 7 Toastmasters here in Oregon and Southwest Washington to a TV audience. And TV Toastmasters is a great way to learn how to spread your message and share your stories with a wider audience.